What if everyone around you was sizing you up? Picture this. You spend your whole life trying to blend in, chasing approval, and molding yourself to match expectations that aren't even yours. You constantly look for validation, terrified of being judged, convinced that your value depends on how others see you. But what if that mindset is the very thing holding you back? What if real happiness, confidence, and success come not from keeping everything in check, but from letting go? Centuries ago, Michel de Montaigne, way ahead of his time, dug deep into this exact paradox. His way of thinking offers a path to inner freedom, self-love, and living without carrying unnecessary weight. He questioned everything we've been told about who we are, what success means, and how we're supposed to function in society. And if you stick with this thought, you'll start to see why the moment you stop chasing outside validation, things just start to fall into place. Really stop and ask yourself, how much of your stress comes from trying to live up to standards that were never yours? How many times have you stayed quiet or small because you were afraid someone might judge you? How much energy do you waste stressing over stuff that in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter? Montaigne's message is actually pretty simple. The more you let go of pressure from the outside world, the more you reconnect with who you really are. He believed life is messy, perfection's a myth, and accepting yourself as you are is one of the smartest things you can do. But here's where most people get confused. Not caring doesn't mean checking out, slacking off, or giving up on life. It's not about becoming numb or ignoring your responsibilities. It's about shaking off that constant need to be approved of, that fear of not being liked, and the habit of picking apart every little thing you do. It's about living on your own terms, showing up fully in the moment, and realizing you've got nothing to prove. Montaigne spent a lot of time observing how people behave, and he saw that most of us are trapped in our own minds, stuck in loops of doubt, worry, and second-guessing. He asked why we let other people's opinions steer our lives. Why do we try so hard to control everything when life is unpredictable anyway? Why are we chasing someone else's version of success? And more importantly, what if we just stopped caring about all of that? When you stop trying to be perfect, you start to accept your quirks. When you quit chasing approval, you finally begin to live for yourself. When you let go of needing to control every outcome, life flows more naturally. And here's the twist. When you stop trying to prove your worth, that's when your real power shows up. Think about the most magnetic, self-assured people you know. Are they the ones always looking for compliments, explaining themselves, and trying to please everyone? Or are they the ones who seem relaxed, unaffected by little things, and totally at home with themselves? Montaigne knew this long before today's psychologists did. People are drawn to realness. When you stop needing validation, when you own your flaws and trust your gut, you don't just become more likable, you become stronger in every part of life. When you stop letting the fear of failure or judgment run the show, you gain something so much better: freedom. The freedom to take risks without overthinking, to speak up without apologizing, to just be, without constantly weighing your worth on some imaginary scale. But here's where it gets really interesting. Once you stop worrying so much, life actually starts to improve. Your relationships feel more honest. Opportunities show up without you forcing them. You make choices that truly reflect what you want, not what you think you're supposed to want. That's the heart of Montaigne's philosophy. He believed that a lot of our pain comes from trying to fight reality, from trying to stuff life into a box it just doesn't fit into. But once you stop that fight, things start to click. So ask yourself, How often do you hold back your thoughts because you're afraid of what people might think? How many times do you replay conversations in your head, wondering if you said the wrong thing? How much of your life has been shaped by expectations that were never truly yours to begin with? Montaigne invites us to step away from those limits we've built for ourselves, to accept that life is uncertain, that flaws are normal, and that fear doesn't get to call the shots. And honestly, this is just the beginning. As we explore more of his philosophy, we'll find practical ways to bring this mindset into your everyday life, so you can cut through mental noise, make decisions with clarity, and finally feel the kind of freedom that only comes when you stop trying so hard to be someone you're not. Michel de Montaigne's way of thinking isn't just some philosophical theory, it's a hands-on, life-changing perspective. So let's go a little deeper. What really shifts when you fully lean into this mindset? What starts to feel different when you stop seeking approval, stop overthinking every little possibility, and stop letting fear run the show? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the things you've been stressing over, the pressure, the rules you've been following, the expectations holding you back, weren't actually real. They were just stories shaped by society, your upbringing, and your own overactive thoughts. Montaigne recognized that people are naturally anxious creatures. We're always trying to predict what's ahead, trying to manage the unknown. But maybe the secret to happiness isn't figuring everything out. It's learning to accept that not everything can be figured out. One of the most eye-opening things he taught is this: you will never be fully understood by everyone, and that's totally fine. Think about how much energy we waste trying to explain ourselves, trying to justify our choices, or prove we're good enough to people who probably never really got us in the first place. We water down our opinions to avoid arguments. We bury our true wants to blend in. We hunt for validation from the outside when the only real approval that counts is our own. Montaigne noticed that a big chunk of human suffering comes from giving too much of ourselves to things that don't deserve it. He saw how people obsess over meaningless stuff, holding on to resentment, worry, and fear that don't actually help. But if you zoom out a little, you'll realize most of that stuff just doesn't matter in the big picture. Ever notice how sometimes, when you finally stop fixating on a problem, the answer just shows up? Or when you stop chasing someone's attention, they suddenly start noticing you? That's not just luck. It's how life works when you stop forcing things. When you let go, everything moves more smoothly. A lot of people fight this idea, though. They think that if they stop caring so much, they'll become lazy or lose their edge. But that's not what this is about. Letting go doesn't mean being careless. It means refocusing. It means giving up the constant stress over things that aren't really important, so you can actually give your energy to what is. Montaigne encouraged us to welcome imperfection, not just in ourselves, but in everything. He saw how trying to control everything was a never-ending battle that only wears us down. Life is messy, unpredictable. No matter how much you plan or prep, there will always be things out of your hands. So why not accept that? Why not see mistakes, setbacks, and the unknown as normal parts of the ride? Just think how much lighter you'd feel if you quit trying to manage every tiny detail of your life. If you stop replaying every decision. If you stop treating failure like it's the end of the world and instead saw it as part of your growth. Montaigne reminds us that every great mind, every leader, creator, innovator has been misunderstood, rejected, and knocked down. But they didn't let that define them. They kept going, not because they were bulletproof, but because they didn't let the crowd's opinion control them. They knew that real success comes from being true to yourself, not from applause. And here's where it gets really good. When you start to live this way, people can feel it. You carry yourself with more ease. You seem more grounded, more confident. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've stopped wasting time and energy on stuff that doesn't deserve it. Ever wonder why some people seem to win effortlessly, while others push endlessly and still feel stuck? It's not always about talent or brains or hustle. It's about how they think. The ones who thrive are often the ones who've let go of the noise and focused only on what counts. Montaigne's insight is clear. The less you cling to, the more room you have to grow. When you stop fearing failure, you take bold steps. When you stop needing approval, you show up more real. When you quit trying to control everything, life surprises you in the best ways. That's why learning not to care, in the right way, isn't about quitting. It's about claiming your freedom. It's about choosing where your energy goes, pouring it into things that actually matter, and walking away from the distractions that drain you. Now take a second to reflect. How much of your daily stress is about worrying what people think? How many dreams have you shelved because you feared being judged? How often do you relive old mistakes, like beating yourself up will somehow rewrite the past? Montaigne's way of thinking gives us a way out, a way to stop dragging those mental chains and start living a little lighter, a little freer, and a whole lot more like our true selves. He reminds us that the past is behind us, the future is unknown, and the only thing we truly have is the present. And once you really grasp that, everything starts to shift, but there's still more to explore. In the next part, we'll dive into a surprising truth: how letting go doesn't push people away, but actually brings them closer. There's something strange, but beautiful about life. The moment you stop needing something, it tends to show up on its own. When you quit chasing approval, others respect you more. When you stop fearing failure, new doors open. And when you give up trying to control everything, life begins to unfold in ways you never saw coming. This idea sits at the heart of Montaigne's teachings. Letting go isn't about running away or giving up. It's about finding a more fulfilling way to live. When you stop clinging so tightly to how you think things should be, you allow life to move naturally. And in that flow, you start to feel something rare: true calm, real power, and deeper connection. But if detachment is so powerful, why is it so hard for most people to embrace? The reason is simple. We've been brought up to believe that control equals safety, that if we just try hard enough, worry enough, and plan everything out, we can make life go our way. But Montaigne saw right through that illusion. No amount of effort can erase uncertainty. No plan is perfect, and no amount of stress can rewrite reality. Instead of fighting life, he invites us to meet it exactly as it is, with all its messiness, unpredictability, and surprises. Think about your relationships for a moment. How many arguments come from expectations that weren't met? How much pain comes from wanting someone to be or act a certain way? How often do we try to steer people's thoughts, emotions, or actions, only to end up let down or upset? Montaigne knew that real connection isn't about trying to control people. It's about letting them be themselves. When you stop trying to mold others to fit your needs or ideals, relationships naturally grow deeper and more real. That's why people who embrace detachment often have more meaningful connections. They don't pressure others. They don't need constant affirmation. They carry themselves with a calm confidence, making space for people to come and go freely. And the irony is, this makes them more magnetic, more respected, and more loved. You've probably seen it. The people who desperately seek attention often push it away, while those who are comfortable in their own skin attract others without even trying. That's the power of letting go. Montaigne believed that how we treat others mirrors how we treat ourselves. If you're always craving validation, it likely means you haven't fully embraced who you are. If being alone scares you, maybe it's because you haven't learned to enjoy your own presence. And if you need people to behave a certain way to feel okay, it might be a sign you haven't built a strong inner foundation. But the moment you turn your attention inward, when you stop trying to manage everyone else, stop being afraid of loneliness, stop measuring yourself by what the world thinks, you unlock real freedom. Ask yourself this: how much emotional energy do you waste reacting to what people say or do? How often does someone's opinion throw off your entire day? How many times have you carried around anger or disappointment, only to realize later it didn't help you at all? Montaigne reminds us that peace doesn't come from others. It comes from within. And when you finally get that, the way you move through life completely changes. Imagine living unbothered by criticism. Imagine welcoming the unknown without panic. Imagine being able to care about people without needing to control them. That's what happens when you stop giving weight to the things that don't actually matter. And here's the most important part. Letting go doesn't mean checking out. It's not about being cold or emotionally detached. It's about showing up fully, without clinging, without stressing over every little thing, and without needing to force outcomes. Montaigne's way is about balance. It's about caring deeply for what really matters. Your values, your sense of purpose, your inner peace, while letting go of the things that drain you and add nothing of value. So ask yourself honestly, what are you still holding on to that no longer helps you? What fears, expectations, or attachments are keeping you stuck? And what would your life look like if you simply set them down? As we step into the final part of this journey, we'll discover the ultimate truth: how embracing the messiness of life, welcoming imperfection, and choosing detachment doesn't just bring inner calm, but also leads to a richer, more meaningful, and deeply fulfilling life. By now, you might be asking yourself, if letting go is so life-changing, why isn't everyone doing it? Why do so many of us stay stuck in this loop of stress, people-pleasing, and trying to control everything? The simple answer is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of messing up. Fear of what might happen if we stop obsessing over every little part of our lives. We've been taught that if we loosen our grip, things will fall apart. But in reality, when you stop stressing over things that don't really matter, life starts falling into place. Montaigne wasn't promoting carelessness, far from it. His message is rooted in deep wisdom. He showed us that by dropping pointless worries, we start to see clearly. By letting go of control, we unlock a sense of freedom. And by welcoming uncertainty instead of resisting it, we discover a richer, more meaningful way to live. Think back to the moments in your life that really stood out, those special, unforgettable times. Were they perfectly planned? Or did they show up unexpectedly when you weren't trying so hard? The truth is, some of life's most amazing experiences, falling in love, finding your purpose, creating something meaningful, can't be forced. They happen when you let go and make space for them to arrive on their own. Picture an artist who stops worrying about whether their work will be liked and ends up creating something incredible. Or the entrepreneur who lets go of the fear of failure and takes a bold leap, changing an entire industry. Or the person who stops desperately looking for love and ends up finding it when they finally start embracing themselves. That's the strange, beautiful paradox of life. The more tightly you hold on, the more things slip away. But when you release your grip, what's meant for you often finds its way back, bigger and better than you imagined. Montaigne knew that life isn't supposed to be an uphill battle all the time. Yes, there will be rough patches, surprises, and hard lessons. But fighting reality, resisting what's happening, or obsessing over outcomes only makes it harder. He urged us to move with life instead of against it, to accept that things won't always make sense, to laugh at the weirdness, and to find joy in the mess. Because here's the big truth. You don't need to have it all under control to be happy. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to fear the unknown, because life is the unknown. And that's what makes it beautiful. When you stop chasing applause, you begin to trust yourself. When you stop being afraid of failing, you take bold steps that lead to real progress. When you stop trying to script every part of your life, you leave room for surprises. And that's often where the magic happens. Montaigne saw this clearly, long before modern self-help books caught on. Real wisdom isn't about mastering life. It's about learning how to move with it, not against it. So here's something to think about as you keep going. What can you let go of today? What fears, expectations, or old habits have you been dragging around that no longer help you? And what might your life look like if you finally trusted that things would work out, even if you don't have all the answers? Because the moment you stop caring about the things that don't matter, the things that do start to show up. And that, in a nutshell, is the true magic behind Montaigne's philosophy. Thanks for reading.